It's okay like this. My lecture is not well prepared by the brain because we had too much time, we needed too much time for other things. So it's a lecture from the heart without any other things than what we know and what we want to share with you. We heard in Julian comments that for people totally not knowing what theosophy is, all the information went too fast and not understandable. Are there visitors here not knowing what theosophy is? Everyone knows. Then I can skip. We try, but you know what TM is. So we don't have to talk you into reincarnation. Okay, then we can talk with each other about the deeper meanings of what Katherine Tingley and Godfried de Purucker did in their lives. Many times the inter-theosophical discussion is about persons, about leaders, about important persons and inspirators. And even in Julian, so many people were mentioned, while the real work of the Theosophical Society is far about the persons. And yet I want to speak with you about two persons. That's perhaps impossible, but it is. If you start with the Lodge of Compassion, and everyone here except you, perhaps I explain, what is the Lodge of Compassion? When we say that everything we can see and hear with our senses is the outer instrument of, I just wait, people come in? Yes. Is the outer instrument of a living organism, then we have the right start. A living organism, and I always warn, it doesn't mean a living human being. So if you look at Jupiter, please don't make the silly Zeus from the Olympus. Don't make Jupiter like that. But it is a living organism, like a cell is a living organism. And you have living organisms very high in development and very low. And we must respect each place, the place of each one of them. If you see that, then the sun and the planet Earth are living organisms, living beings. And every living being is built in the same way, as above, so below. So if we want to know how the planet is built, we can look at ourselves without making the planet a human being, of course. Mother Earth is a mistake to say that. It's not our mother with two hands and two legs, and one's mother has certain characteristics. No, it is a living organism, and every living organism is built in the same way, and we tried to give you a very simple one, as in Christianity, that is spirit, soul and body. I don't tell you anything new. But the earth has a spiritual part, linked to the sun's spiritual part. It has a soul, for the earth is a reincarnating being, and the earth has a body where you go to your malls and shops. But everyone knows that the earth has higher inner parts, and the instrument of the spiritual part within the earth, that is a group of consciousnesses, a group of beings, human beings, higher beings, a whole network that we call the Lodge of Compassion. And they have the task to transform the inner solar inspirational food for every being on earth to a level we can digest and understand. And that is the way every being on earth grows. People, plants, animals, every being grows by that spiritual inner energy from that lodge of compassion. And humanity is a very important part of that lodge. And if you see that, then you can understand that every cycle, the lodge of compassion builds a new instrument to do that job, to do that work. And 1875 was the birth of a new instrument. But the Theosophical Society is also a living organism that reincarnates, that has the same structure and can talk about the spirit and soul part of Point Loma, but the structure of the TS is the same as the structure of us as human beings. And that is very important to realize. For Godfried de Purucker once said that Blavatsky didn't come for 100 years, that Helena Petrovna Blavatsky didn't come for a messianic cycle, but that she came for at least 9 centuries, 9,000 years. And when we know that, and we see what she did, then we must think by ourselves, we must realize that we don't do the work for one cycle. We don't look for 50 years at the Point Loma Society, but we have to look for 9,000 years. We have to keep the thoughts she gave clean and pure and clear for everyone for 9,000 years. That's our task, and we take only a few years in our life to do that, but we have to give that to other generations to do the same for 9,000 years. So when people are sad and say, oh, the days of yesterday were perfect theosophically, and now we don't have any members and no one comes, then they don't understand what our task is. For the Theosophical Society has a heartbeat. And one cycle is one heartbeat, and 1 century. And now we are in a 2nd century, and we have to take up the task and make another heartbeat. And to understand that a little bit, I have to ask your understanding at a higher level. So be prepared for when you talk about the teachings GDP gave us, and all the teachings Katherine, Tingley and Godfried de Purucker gave us, we have to study in that light. What can we learn from it to apply it now? And he gave us clearly the teaching of the involution and evolution of the principles of human beings, but also of other living beings, also of the TS and also of the planet. And the planet we know, that's the 2nd volume of the Secret Doctrine. The human we know because we all study that in our study groups, but of the TS, no one is aware of it. But the Theosophical Society also has 7 large cycles to make in one big cycle, where there is an involution and an evolution of the principles. And I see that everyone understands what I mean, so I can talk a little bit quicker, and I explain to you later what is not understandable. And therefore, I want, especially for you, show the 7 principles of every living being, also ourselves. We have a physical body, and that's understandable, and we translate the Sanskrit and the English, and perhaps also the Dutch I had to put there. But in fact, when we say Sthula Sharira, it is the physical body of the earth. That's where we stand on now. Then the Theosophical Society has an astral body, Linga Sharira. And we have the whole network of vitality. That the pranas, you know, also the pranas of the earth, also the pranas of the TS. The desire part is also known to you. In transcendental meditation, you know everything. I don't have to explain. Yes, I can use the Sanskrit word. Yes, then I like to go, for I have only 30 minutes. To the other one. This is the simple way of depicting the 7 cycles of the Theosophical Society. And if you see that, then I show you, when you have seen this, the next one. And this is a very important one. You all know the names. You all know the process. But it is very good to see this process in the life of the Theosophical Society as an instrument of the Lodge of Compassion. If you see that, then we can talk about Katherine Tingley and Godfried de Purucker not as leaders and persons on photographs, but we can see them as instruments in the growing periods of our society. And they didn't come just because they were Godfried de Purucker, but they came because they were the perfect instrument at that life period of the society. And that is where so many frictions among theosophists are, because within a certain cycle, they are used to that cycle of growth of the TS, and then a leader or a teacher dies, and there comes another one. In every branch of theosophy you have that, whether democratically chosen or whatever. And then a part of the members think, I like that kind. But we have to remember that the Theosophical Society goes into another phase. We didn't stay children. We are grown-ups now. And you can say, oh, that child time is so beautiful. Also the child time of the Theosophical Society. But we have to go forward. And if we want to do our task in the future, we have to learn in which phase the living organism of whom we are part of is going. We must follow that phase and not doing what we think is right. We have to look at the bigger picture. Is the Theosophical Society a worthy instrument in the hands of the Lodge of Compassion? And we mustn't say, oh, I like Godfried de Purucker and I like Crosby, for those people are not important as persons with their character. One is friendly, other not so friendly, but everyone has its place, his place, in that period where they are leading the TS. And leading the TS is nothing but expressing the swabhava of that period. And perhaps we can look at Madame Blavatsky and William Conjurge and Katherine Tingley and Godfried de Purucker, and there I stop. For then we have the cycles after them on the rising arc, on the ascending arc. And if you look at that, you see that our society was shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. And people were so sad about that, but we say it's a natural thing for the spiritual principles were evolving, but the material principles were involving. So of course you have less members, because this world nowadays has more average people and less Buddhas. So if you complain there's not so much members, then you don't see that in the ascending arc you have members expressing the Buddhism, the Buddhist principle of the TS and the earth, and that's always less in this world nowadays. So don't complain, don't feel sorry, it's a natural thing. But let's start with Madame Blavatsky. What did she do? In the early times, the organizational part was pure chaos. And she gave the most highly important new thoughts, destroying old molds and giving us new thoughts for 9,000 years at least. And if you see that, she did exactly what was necessary. She didn't care about the structure of the organization. And we have to remember that. She had a task to give the seed of thoughts for the next 9,000 years. And when she died and William Quan Judge took over his task was to represent the Buddhi principle in our organization with the Linga Sharira as involving the Buddhi, the astral elements evolving. And how can you see that? William Quan Judge did a terrific job to explain Blavatsky's amount of thoughts in a few very inspiring chapters in his book, for instance, The Ocean of Theosophy. That was his outer work. Next to that, he gave us so much, very much important information about elementals, about occultism, about the astral light. But what was his greatness? He managed to be a master over the Linga Sharira part by his Buddhi. For it was a difficult time then. It was so easy with that evolving astral influences to think they are the real thing. And he gave us the Buddhic understanding, the Buddhist view of being master over the astral influences in ourselves and in the world. And Dara is here. Dara worked for many years very hard, Nicholas also, to publish the Echoes of the Orient with Judge's articles, but, and that is the second thing, Judge's approach to the esoteric school. And there he taught the students to be masters over the astral influences and keep rising above that. And if you read volume 3, there you find his suggestions and aids very supportive for people who want to be a theosophist and how you can be that. He only wrote little things because he was a Buddhic person. But he did that. And his most accessible Buddhic book is Letters That Have Helped Me. Those letters seem to be just a book, nice to read, and a good atmosphere. But in fact, they are practices of that occult path to become master over all the astral influences. And now we come to the Point Loma community and what happened there. And we come to Katherine Tingley. And I have read it already, and you already knew, of course, that was the life period of the TS where the higher manas was involving and the prana evolving. And this morning you have heard very correctly how she worked. So I can say in the whole TS there's one task for us all, and that is keeping compassion alive. The brotherhood idea and the brotherhood idea as compassion applied is the whole character and the whole reason of existence for the TS. The moment the members forget this, the TS is shrinking and dying, always. Every branch, forgetting compassion applied, shrinks, and after 10 years there's no lodge anymore. And Katherine Tingley is manas prana, and therefore we say, because it's the compassionate part, it's the higher manas. And what did she, in fact? All members, and even, of course, all human beings, but especially the members which she worked with, were reincarnating people. You see? With a reincarnating part, we all have. And the higher manas, the manasaputrik impulse she gave was not recognizable as a theosophical study. Ken already said that no one in Point Loma studied the theosophical teachings. But what she did was the Raja Yoga educational method to, how do you say that? Uitlokken. Evoke. Ik mis Astrid. Oh, daar, Astrid. Yes. To evoke the reincarnating human being as soon as she could, as in little children, out of the outer form. And all that prana, all that dynamic things she did, every day there was another activity. And from one day to another, she said, now we're going to Los Angeles having a theater performance. And then they had a few days to sew all the costumes and to rehearse and so on. And then there they went within a week. And that is the vitality she had, and that was a good thing. But with her higher manasic, compassionate principles, she managed to be a master over that vitality. And I want to show you one thing, and I don't know how to open other things behind it, Herman. I have help. Yes, another. Yeah? Here. You know, we work on the Point Loma archive, and we promised ourselves not to preserve that archive, but open that archive for everyone in a very, and here you see a simple photocopy. We are not rich in original things, we only have photocopies sometimes, and this is the first reader book for children. And you can say, oh, what a nice photos in it, and flowers, and typically mackerel, and so on. And then you look at the book. But let us see the magic she did. She aimed to do two things, to evoke the reincarnating ego. First, she said to the adults, you are not a human being, you are a god in embryo. And that she said in all her books. She said to the children all the times things about the sun. You also saw it on the photos, I'm a little sunbeam and so on. What do you think she did? She gave a message to the sun part of that child to come out. The reincarnating ego coming out. She didn't talk to children. She did talk to, we always call it colleagues from former lives, friends and colleagues from former lives, that we have to train into the work again. And perhaps you once in your life have, how do you say that, inwerken? grow in the work. When a new colleague comes, you get a month to teach him how to work in the corporation. And we do that with little children. They are friends from former incarnations. And this is hier. Oh, daar kan ook. Can you read it? Do you see that the first words the children taught to read and write was sun? And on this whole page, the only message she gave to the reincarnating ego is sun, sun, sun. You see that? And the first word they learned to write was sun. That is how she worked, and no one recognized it as a theosophical teaching, but she talked to the reincarnating ego. And on the next page, what you see there is the word happy and flowers, and I love the flowers. What she does is evoking the fact that they start loving another living being. You see that? Sun, love. Just as if you give just words. So don't look at all the pretty photos, they're nice, but that's not the real message. And can you do page 3? Yeah? It goes on, yes. What is written there? You see that? Heart, light, sunshine. 3 words, not talked to the child, the evolving instrument, but talked to the reincarnating ego. You see that? And on the right page, playing is nice and happy is always nice, but happy, little, pretty. You see that? Just a few terms. She, how do you say that? She baseballs it within the heart of the child. Just a few terms. And if you see that, that's what we can learn. Kunnen we de volgende hebben, Harold? Yes. That's what we can learn to start today if we want to restart her work, for we are in a second cycle. We are obliged to restart her work in this world. And you see, helping, sharing, brotherhood. You see that? And it is a written text, not a printed text. So that were the words they had to concentrate on while writing. And that is how Katherine Tingley worked, not only in the young child stages, but every stage. And we are evolving now the archives, thanks to Ken. Ken? Oh, thanks to Ken, yes. And we hope with a group, and we hope everyone wants to participate, to look for those special things we can use in our work in the future.
A brief, was the book printed blank where the script is and it was written in later, or was the book printed with script and type?
You know, we are...
Oh, okay.
Printed script? Yeah. I think they have to copy it in another one.
Anyway, it's printed. It wasn't.
Yes, it was in print. Okay. Yes, you know the original. I only have a copy. Yes, the right page. If you read that, I don't have to say it aloud. Everyone can see it. You see that the word happy and thoughts, yes, the child and his thoughts. She makes the child, hoe zeg je dat? Be aware of their thoughts. And they start perhaps writing at 7, I don't know. And that is the time that thinking starts. So this simple page is our course, Thinking Differently, for little children to be aware of thinking and choose their own thought. Yes, and that is the second thing she did. Not only the reincarnating ego as I am a god in embryo, but also the conscience. She wanted to get out a child the conscience as soon as possible, for the conscience is the treasure chest of all our spiritual experiences and ethical convictions from former lives. And this is the simple way she evoked that in a child, to use their conscience. And she did that from a very, very early age on, because she said every child, whatever age, recognizes when something is good and something is wrong. And that is the conscience of the reincarnating ego. So never underestimate your children. They are reincarnating egos. And they know already everything. The only thing you have to do is to evoke it through that unripe body. That is for us Katherine Tingley, and I hope there's no time anymore to give more about her, but this is a very important thing, to study yourself in this direction and review everything you have read of Katherine Tingley with this in mind. And then we have to go to Godfried de Purucker. And Godfried de Purucker is the fourth period of the development of our Theosophical society. And there is involution of karma and evolution of karma, double karma. And everyone said, oh, that's bad, it's karma. But it isn't. It is the karma of an organization that has compassion in its center. So it's the higher karma. And then you can understand so much better what Godfried de Purucker did in his life. He had an exoteric line and an esoteric line. First, the exoteric line. We have the highest number of members in that time. We have most of our lodges in that time. That's the compassionate matter, the higher form of karma, of course. Godfried de Purucker started, and it is not so well known, he started the collected writings of H.P. Blavatsky. So everything she ever wrote, and that was her task, she called herself the writing machine of the masters. And every piece of paper she filled with text, he combined and collected. And what is a good thing, he did it together with other organizations. The Adyar organization and the Point Loma organization didn't work so well together, till in both organizations started a wish to make a collected writings of Blavatsky. And they worked together up till volume 15. Is that correct, Dara? The organizations working together. Boris de Tsirkov belonged to both organizations. I seeing that too.
Never join it.
No, I don't mean join. Yes, no a membership paper. But in heart, they published the book. Mm-hmm.
Independent.
Yes. Boris was independent. Yes?
He felt his true teacher was just... Boris felt his true teacher was always, we call him Jeffrey, I see Dutch is a little different pronunciation, but was his true teacher, and but he was willing to cooperate with other groups. And so there came a period, for a while even there were other publications. Manly P. Hall helped with one volume after the plates were destroyed. That he tried to work on the first plates, and then the war destroyed those first 4 or 5 volumes. But then, through the support of Joy Mills, who became president at that point, then, and he says Sri Ram too, then he began to work with the society. He was great friends. He gave solstice talks up at Crotona. He was always in contact, and John Coates invited him in 1975 at the Centennial and even placed a chair on the platform for Judge. Even Judge couldn't be there. And he brought into that society a kindly feeling, as did their own president, Henry Smith, for a period. But since that time, I think there's been great cooperation. And as Kenny said, he remained independent and just called himself a student.
Oh yes, he was right. But when I stay here, I never mention any membership. I mention the inner attitude. And he looked over the fences. And that is what we like in the ITC and here as well. So you see, Godfried de Purucker started to bring out the April. Can I have 10 more minutes of your time? Thank you. He started to put the spiritual ideas of Blavatsky, given in her time, into paper readable for everyone. And he did that with other things as well. The original text of Blavatsky's books, they were changed every time by others, and Godfried de Purucker brought back the original texts. And that's the reason why, because of our respect for him, we always like to publish the original text of GDP. That is one of the things we learned from him, what he did with Blavatsky. That is the material part of the work. And the spiritual part is even more important. He was the one who, in Point Loma, with that large group of people, he started a very good training course. Katherine Tingley already worked with him on that. She trained him to be able to do that. And in 25, he started to teach the esoteric school members to read the secret doctrine, bearing in mind, in his mind, to publish that one day for us, for the next 9,000 years. So we have a responsibility to keep his thoughts and his teaching unaltered for 9,000 years and available for 9,000 years. And that is the reason why we think it's more important to work for Theosophy than to talk about all the differences between groups. It's not important for us. We have work to do. And after the fundamentals, he gave the 12 teachings Ken talked about in the Spalding House. Was the Spalding House, Ken? In the cellar, they put them together. Yes, it were temple lectures, and they were prepared for publishment in that cellar. And the third cycle of his esoteric students was the dialogues, and we in Holland know that as EOS, another name, but it is the same contents, those meetings, and Elsie Benjamin gave us the original, and in the dialogues are parts missing, and Mr. Kok put them back in the Dutch edition. So perhaps one time we can put them back in the English edition again, so that we work as he did. So he gave the most exclusive, how do you say that? He created order in H.P. Blavatsky's chaotic amount of thoughts, and he did it in a special way. And we grew up in the Point Loma tradition, and it's so normal for us to speak about the 7 principles. And that is also normal for Theosophists sitting on another branch of the tree. But we had at the same time the 7 paramitas and the 7 jewels of wisdom: reincarnation, karma, the hierarchical structure of the universe, Swabhava. You see them all? Yes? Okay. And we discovered to our surprise that for the ULT members, and even for Adyar members of many years of study, this was a new concept. And we were surprised at first, and then we thought, Godfried de Purucker did something special, not found in all the other branches. And what we have to offer to the Theosophical world, what we can give to them, is his worked out teachings of the 7 jewels, where all our members are so well studied in. They understand it, they can talk about it, they can give lectures on, and that concept was not so normal in the Adyar society. We learned that a few days ago. We didn't know that. We thought every society has that. And that is the special thing Katherine Tingley gave us and Godfried de Purucker gave us. And we hope in next days in this Convivium to show you how we do an effort, how we try to revive that in a very vibrant way, Katherine Tingley, in a very compassionate way, all the leaders, to revive that in the second heartbeat. And I think now I have my 10 minutes of you, and that must be enough for later days. We can present you what we think is very good to start with, to make the things Katherine Tingley did and Godfried de Purucker did, not as persons or as leaders, but as representatives of those time periods in the life of the TS, to do that again, but history repeats itself if we don't learn from it. Let us do it in the most harmonious way we can do. And I think that's all.